The Ghost in the Darkness is a 1996 American historical thriller directed by Stephen Hopkins and written by William Goldman. The film is based off the 1907 John Henry Patterson semi-autobiography titled The Man-Eaters of Tsavo. The film follows the events of John Henry Patterson's time in Africa, commanding the construction of a railway. However, upon arriving, he learns of two man-eating lions that are stalking the crew. However, there seems to be more to the beast than hunger. Seemingly unkillable, these two lions are considered by the locals to be devils, which they call the Ghost in the Darkness.
What the lion must have done was lick his skin off so he could drink his blood.
It's been a while since I've covered a historical film, so this will be fun. Let me just start this review off by saying that if you haven't already seen it, go and watch this film. I genuinely love it. Also, if you've seen my streams of Dangerous Hunts 2, you'd know that the first horde stage is a nod to the climax of this movie. Without further ado, let's climb a tree and enjoy The Ghost and the Darkness. We start our story on a dark and stormy night, complete with narration from Samuel, played by John Connie.
This is the most famous true African adventure.
Seems our Lieutenant Colonel Patterson here, played by Val Kilmer, is receiving a job.
We are building the most expensive and daring railroad in history for the glorious purpose of saving Africa from the Africans and, of course, to end slavery.
As we all learn with the flop known as the Woman King, that is true. Many European nations had to step in to stop not only slave trade among Africans, but amongst groups using the Barbary Coast. Also, there's the French and the Germans, but since they're already in the lead, it should be easy to rail them hard. What, are two man-eating lions going to stop the English? Taking the job, Val Kilmer says farewell to his wife and auditions for the role of Batman. Also, before we move on, I want to highlight this line from the narration.
Even the most impossible parts of this story really happened.
That will surprisingly hold true. Now in Africa, we get introduced to all kinds of wacky characters like the priest, Angus Starling, played by Brian McCarty, who he impresses with all his fun facts about the local wildlife.
Females are bigger. Only animals here like that. Have to be or they wouldn't survive because the males eat the young.
Well, if Dangerous Hunts 2 taught me anything, it's that crocodiles are nature's invisible landmines, and leopards will chase you over quicksand. Hey, look at that, we get to put a face to Samuel's voice. Well, before getting down to business, let's get down with the sickness. As the camp doctor is found, Dr. David Hawthorne, played by Bernard Hill. So, the Indians hate the Indians, and they both hate the Africans. Even our healers of the spirit and flesh don't get along.
But their suffering is only transitory. Once they accept God into their hearts...
Poor bastards will get even sicker if you don't shut up.
To make matters worse, Patterson seems to have brought bad luck with him in the form of a man-eater. With little in the ways of options, he sets up in a tree for the night, which brings its own problems.
The cramp is getting worse.
Well, as night goes on, Patterson remains on Overwatch. If XCOM is anything to go off, he'll nail the Overwatch, but miss every other shot in the movie. So wooly bully indeed, as the beast is finished and work can resume. Samuel even presents Patterson with a gift from the dead lion. I do want to take a moment to say that the first 40 or so minutes of this film feel really rushed. I mean, we get this line about one of the workers having killed a lion with his bare hands, to then reference it again 2 minutes later. Okay, more like 2 minutes, 20 seconds, but still, it's really fast. I hope nothing happens to our monk-class lion killer here. So he's fucking dead, and in a strange way, too. Well, time to go back up in the tree and await the beast. But instead, it strikes at the other end of the camp, so a plan is hatched to deter the beast from getting inside the camp.
In our village, we construct thorn bush fences around where we live.
And yes, those are real, and yes, they are traditionally used to deter lions, something Tsavo lions may excel at countering, but I'll touch on that later. That night, our main cast discuss how no lion attack has occurred in a week. We also learn that Angus has gone from trying to convert the entire continent to just Samuel and Patterson.
My mother's Roman Catholic and my father's a Protestant.
I have 4 wives.
God, I miss good dialogue like this. What doesn't miss is that fucking lion. Arming up, our heroes charge in the battle with Patterson alone approaching the beast. Yeah, so now may be a good time to lock and load Samuel. There isn't just one of the beasts. So down one Angus, morale is at an all-time low. The workers want to leave, and the boss man himself is showing up. Nothing insulting the pride of Abdullah, played by Puri, won't fix. But about that lion, well, Patterson has a bright idea of a contraption consisting of a tripwire, protected portion for shooters, and a mechanism to seal the beast in once the tripwire is activated. One problem about his use against tigers in India, though.
And it worked. In point of fact, it didn't. But I'm convinced the theory is sound.
So hey, you three jobbers grab some rifles and head on inside, so when the lion approaches, they should have little trouble. And I need to point out that while this seems ridiculous and impossible, it actually happened this way. From the lion's roar deafening one man to them failing to land a single bullet on the beast, even them managing to accidentally free the beast by shooting the trap door. It all happened. First time watching, I genuinely thought it was an over-the-top moment added for a set piece. If you know it's real or not, you feel Patterson's frustration. Even Abdullah is angry enough to borderline start a riot until the arrival of Remington, played by Michael Douglas.
I am the devil.
Our hunter is here to aid Patterson with the lions, and he's brought alongside a hunting party. While preparing for the hunt, we get this scene.
Will you exchange weapons with me? Mine's much more powerful.
I realize the doctor isn't a bad guy, and he isn't out to screw over Patterson, but Patterson should have known better than to take this offer on account of it chambering a more effective round. And we see exactly why during the hunt, which is a cool scene, even if the tribesmen don't do much. Luckily, Remington is there to shoot at the beast and scare it away. He also says the most obvious thing to Patterson.
You went into battle with an unproven rifle.
So that didn't work at all. Time for plan B. Yep, they move all the sick and wounded to the other side of the camp and fill up the original hospital with blood, meat, and various carcasses. We do get a nice moment between Patterson and Remington. He was a bit down with everything that happened, so Remington asked about the trap and even applauds it, mentioning he tried something similar before.
Yours worked.
No, in point of fact, it didn't. It was still a good idea.
Again, the characters and writing in this are so good. What's not so good is that the lions have somehow rolled perception and checked the trap successfully, so off they go to the other side of the camp. So down a doctor, and with a bloodbath, everyone leaves the site. So desperate to finally end this, our hunters head out in search of the beast, happening across their lair, a lair filled with human bones. Okay, desperate times call for desperate measures, so Patterson thinks of a ploy. He figures trying something new on the lions will work. Remington and Samuel disagree on it, but Remington does give Patterson his pistol. That night, a heavy fog sets in on them, obscuring everyone, but with the sounds of their terrain there, monkey noises, bugs, birds, creaks of the structure, and the rustling of leaves. Or owls, who apparently are mercenaries for the lions. Now on the ground, Patterson discovers swapping to your secondaries faster than finding your primary. Tracking the wounded beast, Remington manages to finish it off. This is a time for celebration, and drinking, maybe being blackout drunk while the other lion roars in anger is a bad idea. Well, time to go full Far Cry 2. So prepared for the battle, he marches off. And the tables are quickly turned, really fast. Also, while the actors did work with real lions 90% of the time, I do wonder if this is superimposed. Well, Africa started with lions and trees, so it will end with lions and trees. Luckily, Samuel's here to save the day. Or not. Back on the ground level, he manages to get one barrel off, but the beast won't die. So the operation is saved, the workers are back, and Patterson raises his son high. I think the film ends on actual photos of the bridge too. So what was true in this film? Honestly, it'd be easier to say what wasn't true. Patterson was real, and the railway was real. The lions on screen are incorrect to an extent. Well, yes, it was 2 male lions. They weren't what we typically think of. Savo lions are maneless, while also being more aggressive than their typical counterparts. Also much bigger, with the ones Patterson killed coming in at 9 feet in length. Something I think we can excuse the film on, as the actors did work with real lions, though a puppet was made and it saw limited use. Also, Tsavo lions being maneless is still unknown for the reason. Some believe it is to aid their passage through thorny vegetation and the like, which would explain why the defensive structure built didn't work in real life. But I think the real question we're all wondering is, why did two man-eaters become so aggressive? Well, the movie remarks about the British ending slavery. Well, for centuries, the Arab slave trade had gone all over the area. If slaves were sick or dying during transportation, then the slavers would toss them to the brush, making for easy prey. This gave the lions a taste for man, and when denied this, they turned to more aggressive tactics. It should be noted that the numbers of death are all over the place. The Ugandan Railway Company said 28. Well, Patterson says 135. Well, it would be easy to say he's exaggerating for his book. I'm compelled to believe his numbers. When research was done on the Tsavo lions, it was discovered that in the last 3 months, one of them had eaten 11, while the other had eaten 24. Again, in 3 months. Considering these events took place over a year, the math checks out. It's also likely the British were embarrassed by the event and wanted to hide as much shame as possible. Patterson did claim they were killing for fun, and while it has been contested, we see cats do this all the time when they find prey. Even simple house cats will play with mice, even kill them, and never devour. The highest point of contention for the book is Patterson's telling of the lion's cave. He claims there were human remains in there, yet with only a photo of the entrance, that's not much proof. It was supposedly found and tested, showing no traces. However, I do have to wonder if other animals, big and small, would have picked and plundered the cave. Were the lions demons? No. Did they achieve some truly special feats? Yes. I mean, the lions were smart enough to strike at different points of the camp, and when paw prints were found outside the hospital and they moved everyone to the other side of the camp, in addition to setting a baited trap at the original hospital, the lions perception checked with a critical success and tore through the improvised tent. The other piece of fiction was Remington. Patterson would often hunt alone, and Remington is at best a combination of various people who interacted with Patterson. He was largely based off big game hunter Charles H. Ryall, who was superintendent of the railway police. So that was The Ghost in the Darkness. Premiering October 3rd, 1996 in the USA, it would have a final release digitally in the Philippines, June 14th, 2021. The film would be made on an estimated budget of $55 million USD and would go on to make $38.6 million domestically, with $87 million worldwide. That said, the film was largely panned, with various critics complaining, and Val Kilmer getting a Razzie Award. Judging by the reviews I read, it seems they couldn't get behind the more bizarre moments of the film. While none are specified, I'm left to assume the sheer absurdity of what happened in real life was perceived as pure fiction by critics. The film was shot mostly on location at the Songimvelo Game Reserve in South Africa. They chose this over Kenya due to tax laws. The role of Remington was originally pitched for Sean Connery and Anthony Hopkins, with Goldman wanting Burt Lancaster. It should be noted that while Douglas did take the role, he was also on with a fair amount of control for the project, with him producing. Now, production was slowed up to this point, but Douglas did take what would have been a 3-hour film and cut it down to 1:40. I can only imagine this led to how sped up and squished everything felt in the first third. It is noted that Goldman thought Douglas ruined the character of Remington, taking away the mystery and making him come off like a wimp and loser. While I disagree with that, I hold that the film needed more time to breathe. A final detailed note is that the Maasai in The Hunt were played by real-life Maasai warriors, so this film was pitched as Jaws meets Lawrence of Arabia. I don't know if that's the two I would use, but the film does come off as an excellent thriller. Memorable music, great shots, practical effects, fun characters, and more. It is a film that is rushed and choppy, but manages to endear its way through that. Watching the constant back and forth between man and beast is great to watch. I don't see the bad acting that was claimed by the critics at the time. Instead, I thought everyone did their job perfectly well. While the movie comes off as pure fiction at times, knowing the real events elevates the film and what it's showing. In terms of history films that get shown off for accuracy or pure enjoyment, I think The Ghost in the Darkness earns a spot. I think in a head-to-head comparison, I would rather watch this film over Jaws. Imagine a timeline where this film got a series, and we get a fourth one about the revenge of the Tsavo man-eater.
Even the most impossible parts of this story really happened.